Let me say this real quickly, right? This is the first year in a while when I look at the Premier League and I look at Manchester City and I actually think of them as, and I don't want to like call them out too early, right? Because it's Manchester City. If any team on the planet deserves more credit in the bank based on what they've done over league campaigns for the last, since what? Since 2018, 2019, it's them. But I've watched a lot of them this season and I continue to come away thinking, they might actually be mortal this season. They might actually be human this season. Every single time I watch Manchester City, they concede so many transitions. They concede at minimum one big gaping 1v1 chance, like a ball down the middle or a ball across goal where a player is just like begging to finish it. And for the most part this season, right, they've conceded goals. This isn't the same Manchester City never concede, right? They've gone down a few games, but there are games where they could have been down 2-0. 3-1, 4-2. Like, there are points in games where I look at City and say, how the hell are you not more than one goal behind here? And for the most part, I don't want to say they've gotten lucky, but I think they've gotten away with wins where, against different opposition, I don't know if it's happening, to be honest with you. They have enough quality on the other end. However, defensively, Manchester City have shown there are flaws in this team. There are chinks in the armor this year. But what I will say about City this season, I think it's the first year since Pep's second season that I genuinely look at the league and say, this league is there to be won by somebody else. And again, you know what? Fair enough. 2019, Liverpool won the league, right? 2019, 2020. But this version of City, I look around the league and I genuinely believe they are there to be got at. They are there to be punished this season. But then the problem is I look around the league and who is really poised to put up a serious title charge? This is why, for me, I looked at Arsenal earlier in the day, and I still stand by it. I don't think they're going to win the league, but I don't think they're not going to win the league because City are this untouchable team. I look at Arsenal, I think you guys have your own issues, but I look at previous versions of Liverpool. I even look at previous versions of Arsenal, and I think in this season, they would have won the league. However, that then brings us to Liverpool, who have won today in actually very Klopp-esque manner. We've talked about Arne Slot and the differences between himself and Jurgen Klopp, but I actually think today Liverpool showed a lot of qualities that mirrored old school Klopp, to be honest with you, in terms of how aggressive they were playing from the front, the second half in particular. I think Slot really did a good job of adapting in that game. But in terms of transitions, in terms of the aggression, in terms of the speed of their attacks, the directness, I look at them this year and just think to myself, is this the year Liverpool do it? Honestly, are they going to do it in Arne Slot's first season? I think with Liverpool, there's always an apprehension from people because of last season, how it kind of panned out. They were top or around the top for so long, and then a late season collapse. People were saying all season long it wasn't sustainable. Then you look at the last few years where one year that they're challenging, the next year they're not. It's very difficult for some people, I think, to really legitimize how serious Liverpool's title aspirations are. But I'm saying this as a Man United fan as well too, right? So this brings me no pleasure to say, this team can win the league. This team can win the league. I don't think it's the best Liverpool team that I've seen since Salah and Van Dijk joined. I'm not going to say that, but they are a very good team. They're a very versatile team. And they're a team playing in a league where, I'm sorry, the top dog that previously you could guarantee to accrue 95, 94, 93 points. I don't want to write it off too soon, but I don't know if City are capable of that this year, man, honestly. I look at City, the absence of Rodri, and this is why for me I've continued saying I don't think Rodri robbed Vinny of the Ballon d'Or because it's a different kind of dominance in terms of what Vinny portrays, but Rodri dominates football games. And his importance to that Manchester City team for me was as equal, if not greater, than any single player is to their respective team. How important Rodri is to Manchester City cannot be quantified by goals, by assists, by any... In fact, maybe the only way you could quantify it is the statistic that last season, whenever Rodri plays, Manchester City won all but one game, the FA Cup final. He's that versatile, he's that valuable to them, in terms of his ability to defend transitions, his ability to kind of just be that man in the middle of the park. Where you look at City's other midfielders, you're looking at Gundogan, you're looking at Bernardo Silva, Kovacic. They're all able midfielders in their own right. Maybe some of them are on the decline, but physically I'm looking at them. They're all pretty diminutive in style or even in size. I look at Rodri, he was the man of that midfield. And last season in particular, the role he did in almost every single phase of midfield for Manchester City, whether it was breaking up play, splitting lines, carrying the ball forward, spraying passes out wide, even beating players, even finishing off chances. He was, for me, Manchester City's midfield all summed up into one player. That miss is massive for them. It's more massive than any kind of miss that De Bruyne can offer you. It's more massive than any kind of miss Haaland can bring for you. More massive than any kind of miss Foden can bring to you. City can for the most part, live with any kind of player being out. We've seen it in the past. They've won leagues where De Bruyne has missed time. They've won the league last year where Haaland missed time. Foden has missed time. But Rodri, I seriously wonder, are Manchester City still the untouchable force they are if Rodri's not on the pitch? And then I look at the rest of their team as well, too. Defensively, I knew my eyes weren't lying to me, right? Like, because oftentimes you say, oh, well, they're conceding chances, but they didn't concede. Guys, I'm looking at Kyle Walker. I'm looking at, well, Stones and Diaz. They're in and out of the team at the moment. I'm even looking at Akanji, who I think is, I'm a big fan of Akanji, but I don't think he's been at his very best all season long. The only one for me, even Rico Lewis, right? I think Rico Lewis is very talented, but he's not some no-nonsense defender. The only one for me this year I genuinely think has defended consistently to an elite level is Gvardiol. It's Gvardiol. And in fact, he's the only one contributing to them offensively as well, too, right now. But yeah, this City team for me, genuinely, this could come back to bite me crazy. And they might still win the league because ultimately someone has to capitalize. And if no one's good enough to capitalize, then hey, City will be champions again. But this is for me the most vulnerable City have looked since 2017. I genuinely believe that. Who is the team to take over from them? I think Chelsea, it's too early for them. I do think so. I don't think Chelsea have what it takes right now to win a league. And as for Arsenal, I maintain what I said this morning. For me, this season, creatively, creating chances, match winners, they don't have enough of it in their team. They're not ready this year, this season in particular, to win the league. But could it be Liverpool? I'm looking at this Liverpool team, and one thing I absolutely love about this team is the amount of options that they have in attack. The amount of ways this team can hurt you is crazy. Like, you look at that front line of Gakpo, Nunez, Jota, Salah, Luis Diaz. That's 5 great options right there. That's 5 legitimately great options. They all start for the majority of Premier League teams. That's crazy to say. And yes, they're not a perfect team either. Don't get it twisted. That first half, Brighton picked them apart a few times. One pass in particular, I thought Van Dijk got really fortunate with. Didn't deal with it nearly well enough. Kelleher came to the rescue. And for the most part, Brighton, they were dangerous today. Brighton, by the way, extremely good team. And I think their recruitment and their higher up positions in terms of being able to continuously replace managers with guys that also do a great job, sell their best players and continuously replace them with players of a similar quality. I think they deserve massive credit in that regard. And if they had won today, I think they would have gone up as high as 3rd place. But Liverpool, give credit to them. One thing that hasn't departed them from the Klopp era is the never say die mentality. These guys never know when they're beat, particularly at Anfield. That crowd is like a 12th man. And just when they really come out in second halves and put up the pressure, you almost feel like the opposition is choking. You almost feel like they're suffocating because they just hit you with wave after wave after wave after wave. And ultimately, it doesn't matter how good you are. Sometimes, man, good defense, better offense. I'm looking at the chances today that Liverpool created in that second half. Yeah, you can say the first one, the in-swinging cross from Gakpo, that I don't even think hits Nunez, but Nunez goes for it. It creeps in. You can say, is there an element of fortune to it? Perhaps. The Salah goal, there's no fortune to that whatsoever. That's vintage Mohamed Salah. That's vintage Salah. A guy that just doesn't know when to stop scoring, man. I think today he officially leapfrogged Robbie Fowler, which is a crazy accomplishment in its own right. They're a special team, man. And this is a game, honestly, where I didn't think Liverpool were at their very best. Trent, I thought, played one of his worst games this season. Van Dijk, I thought, at times could have been got at. Like, I think he was genuinely, like, this first half chance, I remember very well. The ball in behind, I just was wondering, how the hell is Van Dijk not intercepting that? Konate comes out at halftime, injured. Joe Gomez, I thought, had a really, really good second half performance, even though his goalless run continues. I mean, how did he miss that chance, man? Like, if you're not going to score that, Joe Gomez, you're never going to score again. But give credit to Liverpool, man. And this is why I continue saying, people can talk to me about, like, oh, they haven't played anyone big yet. I know what I'm watching right now. This is a team that aren't afraid of anybody, and I genuinely believe, from what I've seen of Arne Slot and what I've known about these Liverpool players for the last 3-4 years, they will be in this title race till the very end. Now it's all up to, can they stay consistent? Can they stay sustainable? And will City continue to look as human as they do? For me, I think the return of Kevin De Bruyne will be huge for them. I genuinely believe that because I'm looking at Erling Haaland, right? And he's not faultless per se, but one thing about Erling Haaland, love him or hate him, is he's a finisher. His movement is unreal. His eye for goal, his instincts, the timing of his runs is sensational. But he's a player that relies on service. He is. And in this Manchester City team, so many times I watch players pick up their head, see him make a darting run. He makes about 50 a game. And they continuously look up, look back down, play it sideways. Look up, look back down, play it backwards. Haaland, as that kind of player, must be frustrated beyond his belief. And that's not to say he's faultless. I personally think he has a lot more to offer. He has a lot more to do. But come on, man. We know what Haaland's about. You give him chances, he'll score goals for fun. But you have to feed him the ball. I've said this before, but I remember in 2013 when we signed Robin van Persie for Man United, and Sir Alex at some point in the season told Carrick, he told Scholes, he told Giggs, he told Rooney, he told Kagawa, Valencia, Young, all of them. Rio told this story. This guy is going to make 50 runs a game, and you feed him the ball, he will score. So every single time you guys don't pass him the ball or send him through on goal, I'm noticing you won't play the next game. That has to be the message from Pep to these guys, man. Honestly, because this season, right? It's crazy to say this about a team that's still top of the league, or I think after today they're still marginally top of the league. It's crazy to say this about a team that have won so many games this year. But City are City because they don't get complacent. City are City because they continue lifting the standard. The standard of their play right now is not good enough. For other teams, it might be good enough. For Manchester City, this is not the Manchester City that we've grown accustomed to. And I look at them this year, and genuinely, I think, and I'm going to say this right now, the league is there to be won by somebody else this year. And if nobody can take the league away from Manchester City as long as they're in this form, stop hyping up the Premier League as the best league in the world. If nobody can take the league off Manchester City this season, you can no longer call this the best league in the world. You can't. Come on, man. Like, what are we watching here? This team, it's Manchester City by name right now. It's Manchester City by name. Every year I hear so many excuses from rival fans. Arsenal fans saying, look, we want to win the league, but if we don't win the league against the City team, it's not a failure because it's City. Liverpool have said similar. In the past, I would have agreed. This year, save me that. I don't want to hear that at the end of the season. That's not a failure because City won it. They always win it. At some point, someone's got to break it, and this is the year to do it. I'm telling you. Unless something magically changes in January, they go buy a top-level defensive midfielder. De Bruyne hits heights of a few seasons ago. Haaland continues off where he started, where he left off before De Bruyne got injured. I don't know. Defensively, they just figure it out. Maybe. But as long as this City team continues looking as vulnerable as they do, I don't want to hear excuses from anybody. If you don't win the league this season, it's not because City were untouchable and they spend so much money and their team is unbeatable and you just weren't good enough. And ultimately, that's a reflection of the league. Letting the City team win 5 in a row is a reflection. Not the other 4, forget about it. This 5th one would be a reflection more so on how bad the league is this year rather than how untouchable City are. I truly believe that. I also want to give a shout out to Bournemouth because this is now 2 wins, or I guess 3 wins on the bounce. 2 of them against Arsenal and City. That's hugely impressive. And Iraola continues to be a manager that I absolutely marvel at. I admire the guy so much. For me, very, very underrated manager in the league. I want to give a shout out to Brighton because even though they lost today's game, I thought Hurtzler yet again set them up extremely well. In the first half, I thought gave Liverpool real issues, really disrupted their kind of play until Arne Slot adapted himself. But Brighton this season, I mean, Welbeck is having a renaissance. I think Hurtzler's signings this year, for the most part, have been quite good. Kadioglu took his goal extremely well. And I want to give a shout out as well to a separate game, but Nottingham Forest. Wow. What a story we're having there. This was a team that I actually thought could go down this year. How stupid do I look? Nuno Espirito Santo continues to show that, look, just because it didn't work out at Spurs doesn't mean the guy isn't a very accomplished manager. What he did at Wolves all those years ago. Come on, man. He had Wolves in the Europa League. I think they won Europa League quarterfinals, semifinals. Like, top manager. You look at what he's been able to do with Hudson-Odoi since he came in. You look at Chris Wood, who at the age of 32 years old is still banging in goals. This Nottingham Forest team right now, for me, are the story of the season. Massively impressed by them. But seriously, this league is there to be got at. I expect much better from Manchester City, personally. I expect much better for the rest of the year. Because, look, this is the first time they got punished. But I've watched them numerous times this season. They are there to be got at. I'll name you a few examples. Brentford could have been 2-0 up. Fulham could have been 2-0 up and then 3-1 up. Southampton could have been 1-1 at halftime. Wolves could have been 2-0 up. Teams have been literally on the precipice of beating City this year. And whether due to a combination of poor finishing, lack of concentration, poor defending on the other end, they just haven't been able to get it done. Teams like City, for me this year, they are there to be got at. We'll see who can do it.